Mysteries of History Revealed, Dinosaurs to Extraterrestrials. Copyright by Jeremy Auldaney, 2014, all rights reserved. And we're starting on page 57. Paradigm shift. Evolutionists did not believe in worldwide catastrophes or even massive extinction events until about 1980, when Louis W. Alvarez proved them wrong. This was because they had accepted the false theory of uniformitarianism created by the atheist theologian-hating lawyer Charles Lyell in his Principles of Geology, upon which the theory of atheistic evolution created by the theologian and amateur naturalist Charles Darwin was founded. Neither of these had PhDs. They were amateur scientists. I believe that Darwin did get a master's degree in something, but I'm not sure what it was. It's interesting, though, he wrote about Venus flytraps, the carnivorous plant. He also he discovered some glass meteorites, which are called tektites, I think at the same time when he was on the islands and traveling around on the Beagle. In the late 1900s, the acceptance of cataclysms was forced onto the atheist scientific community both by the growing evidence as well as the failure of the theory of uniformitarian evolution. This discovery of periodic cataclysms made a need for evolutionists. Darwinian evolution had failed because natural selection does not create new information for evolution to progress on. It only selects what already exists. So mutations became the would produce the genetic information, they assumed. This is when radiation, like cosmic rays, strikes a gene cell and destroys genomes, causing a loss of information and less diversity in offspring. Evolution was also failing, and of course a loss of information, it goes against evolution. They need an increase in evolution, and they have never found a mechanism that will do that. Of course, now the new theistic evolution, which is the occult, they believe, and UFO groups believe that the increase in genetic information may be caused by Gaia, which is some kind of intelligence in matter itself, which of course is not a scientific theory because you can't prove such a thing. Evolution was also failing to prove it was a fact because of the lack of transitional forms among the fossils. Sudden appearance of new forms in the fossil record and a lack of change over time, and lack of a mechanism that increases genetic information, which can only come from intelligent design. Evolution evolves into New Age theistic evolution. However, in recent years, a new kind of mechanism for evolution has been presented by New Age writers to save evolution theory based on ancient pagan goddess worship and neo-catastrophism, claiming the Earth Mother Gaia is a natural intelligence in matter that organizes things, cosmic consciousness. Darwinian evolutionists are slowly changing over to these new theories in a form of evolution which I call New Age evolution, or von Danicanism, which claims that there is a cosmic intelligence in matter itself, and that this intelligence was seeded throughout the universe on meteorites, in a theory called transpermia. Then it evolved into aliens who orchestrated our creation from ape-like creatures, or we are their descendants from aliens left on Earth. This theory fulfills the promise of Lucifer to Eve that men are the highest manifestation of this cosmic intelligence and will evolve into gods. It fits the theory of theistic evolution supported by most theologians today, like Hugh Ross, and UFO contactee prophets. Deists reject miracles and accept this belief. Neo-catastrophism. The Alvarez hypothesis supported theories of mass extinctions and punctuated equilibrium evolution. It also explained away evidence of catastrophes supporting the Bible. However, they had to admit that most of these extinction events were worldwide. The truth always has a way of coming out in the end. The Bible says, beware, your sin will find you out, and there are no secrets that will not be revealed. Atheists and agnostics, or spiritualists and deists, believe the earth and universe are billions of years old, because an evolution process would require a long time to happen by chance, or trial and error by some intelligence in matter. But there is no evidence that can confirm this assumption. Spiritualists, deists agree with the atheists on this. This is religion, not scientific theory. The only accurate dating method. Christians are the only group that can claim an approximate, accurate date for the age of the earth. It is given in the Bible that the earth was created in 6 days, and if you add up the genealogies in Genesis, the origin of time and space was approximately 6,000 years ago. Henry Morris convinced me that there could be no pre-Adamite creation, because if this were true, then there was sin and death before Adam, which contradicts the Bible, where it says death and entropy in physical things came by man's sin. The earth would have been eternal if man had not followed Lucifer's rebellion. No entropy, no sin, no growing old, nothing wearing out, no accidents, no sickness, no anger, no greed, no need for money, no death. This biblical fact supports the Christian belief that there are no other physical created beings in the physical universe, or this curse fell on them also, even though they did nothing wrong. However, there are created beings in another dimension which can enter our physical dimension through what are described as stargates, or megalithic stone pagan worship sites like Stonehenge, which are placed on the electromagnetic grid of the earth, where lines of natural current come together. The Chinese called them dragon paths because they used to see what they thought were flying dragons. Today we'd call them UFOs. Science fiction has been used by members of secret societies to condition us to falsely interpret these contacts as physical contacts from physical aliens, starting with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, H.G. Wells, Jules Verne were some of the beginnings of this. When did the Earth get struck by the comet asteroid, described by Alvarez? If the Earth is only 6,000 years old, then the asteroid comet that hit the Earth could not have been 65 million years ago. So when did it happen? Is there scientific evidence that supports this? I have already explained that radiometric uranium dating et al. Only gives dates in millions of years regardless of the actual date of the specimen, and the thickness of the strata was formed by rapidly moving water during the flood, and this thickness can't be used as a measure of time as suggested by Charles Lyell, the lawyer, because it is too rapid to record millions of years. It is also too variable to be used as a clock. Sediment has to be moving rapidly enough to be carried and deposited, which means it has to be deposited in hours, days, or weeks. Another proof of this is the preservation of three-dimensional unflattened fossil whales, dinosaurs, and other fossils, and polystrate fossils like trees going through several rock layers deposited supposedly over millions of years, while the log shows no sign of erosion from top to bottom. Great asteroid discovery. I remember my research started when I heard Fred Budinger, the ranger at the Calico Early Man site in the Mojave Desert, California, talking to someone about how some scientists had discovered that an asteroid had killed the dinosaurs. This was before it became common knowledge to the public. He had my immediate attention. I asked and got a copy of the report of this meteorite impact in the Cretaceous. I realized that meteorites were the answer to the cause of the flood of Noah. I had already been interested in dinosaurs and meteorites for many years and read several books. This started my research career. My first lecture at the Riverside Bible Science Association group at Loma Linda University, which I founded, was on this subject. Later, I wrote a paper on it for the Twin Cities Creation Conference called, under Jeremy Auldaney, Asteroids and Their Connection to the Flood. Proceedings of the Twin Cities Creation Conference, Northwestern College, Roseville, pages 133 to 136 in 1992. This was 2 years before the first recorded impact of an asteroid on another planet was observed. This impact on Jupiter illustrated exactly what I believed happened on Earth at the time of the flood. It was a comet which broke up and struck Jupiter like a machine gun in 1994. By the way, I was on an airplane going to another conference in Pittsburgh when that asteroid struck Jupiter. And the tabloids were saying it might cause catastrophic things, airplanes could crash, and I didn't believe that because what happens on another planet doesn't affect us here. Unless, of course, it's a much wider, the shower of meteorites might affect everybody, all the planets. How do they date this KT boundary, where the last dinosaurs are found buried? By the unreliable radiometric dating using uranium to lead and potassium to argon. Some scientists have used the carbon-14 method, which should produce no results. These scientists, of course, were creationists. They're the only ones that would dare to do this, because there should be no radioactive carbon-14 with a half-life of which has a half-life only 5,730 years, which only dates back can date things only back to about 100,000 years, depending on the reliability of the counting process. Recently, the new Ames method, accelerator mass spectrometry, is used, which has made carbon-14 dating much more accurate. Older organic objects, millions of years old, would not have any detectable radioactive carbon-14 left if they were millions of years old. However, in spite of this, the results were obtained in dating dinosaur bones with carbon-14, proving these dinosaur bones have a significant amount of radioactive carbon-14 that can easily be dated, and the results date them as thousands of years old. Of course, contamination has been suggested, but careful decontamination and repeated dating process producing identical results would show the method is reasonably accurate. Therefore, the KT boundary is most likely the most common exposure of the last layer laid down as the flood of Noah receded from the continents about 5,000 years ago. And as things calmed down, volcanic dust, soot from fires, and meteorite dust settled on this surface. Chicxulub asteroid fragments I discovered in Texas. I was on the road that goes through Glen Rose near Paluxy River dinosaur track site excavation by the Creation Evidence Museum, where I stopped to collect marine fossils, including a beautiful ammonite and a large articulated clam. That indicates it was buried alive, by the way, when the shells are together. I then went up above the road cut to the flat top of the Cretaceous strata, which would be the last layer of the flood in most places. In most of the western states, you can see flat mesas from wherever you are. From the creation viewpoint, this would be the last layer deposited when the flood ended and left a flat layer on the surface as the water drained off the land. After that, as the water decreased and land continued to rise, downcutting cut the canyons, creating areas which preserved the original flat surface intact as mesas. This observation was fascinating to me on my trip to Texas, to the Creation Evidence dig. On this flat ground, I found loose soil on top filled with a fossil marine shells that had eroded from the rock below. Below the first few inches of soil was the rock surface of the Cretaceous sandstone. On this rock surface, I found what looked like iron and olivine meteorites, averaging 1/4 of an inch in diameter to 1/2 an inch. They looked similar to the iron and olivine meteorites I had found at Odessa meteorite craters, as well as ones I had bought. I collected 60 olivines and 2 irons on this flat surface in Texas. I sent some of the olivines to Hugh Miller, who had them tested, and they were identified as volcanic. One of these had the impression of a fossil shell imprinted into it, indicating it was molten when it landed. Meteorites are never molten. They are cold. Only a thin surface fraction of an inch thick forms fusion surface as the meteorite falls through the atmosphere. As for the two irons, they are about 1/4 of an inch in diameter and may be meteorites or iron from the volcanic eruption. This indicates that in Texas, dinosaurs walked making trackways, and then marine tidal impacts from the ocean covered their skeletons on top of their tracks with sediment containing marine shells. Then the water receded, and a shower of volcanic rocks showered the bare surface. Then, over hundreds of years, soil formed over the surface. This volcanic material may have been caused by the impact, the asteroid impact, which would have caused the volcanic eruptions. SWRI.org website, September 6, 2007. New research reveals a large asteroid breakup to be the likely source, would later create the Chicxulub crater on the Yucatan Peninsula as well, and having characteristics similar to carbonaceous chondrite meteorites. For more information, Maria Martinez at phone number 210-522-3305. Communications Department, Southwest Research Institute, P.O. Drawer 28510, San Antonio, Texas, 78228-0510. Quote, at approximately 170 kilometers in diameter and having characteristics similar to carbonaceous chondrite meteorites, the Baptistina parent body resided in the innermost region of the asteroid belt when it was hit by another asteroid estimated to be about 60 kilometers in diameter. This catastrophic impact produced what is now known as the Baptistina asteroid family, a cluster of asteroid fragments with similar orbits. The gradual spreading of the family caused many fragments to drift into a nearby dynamical superhighway where they could escape the main asteroid belt and be delivered to orbits that cross the Earth's path. The team's computations suggested that about 20% of the surviving multi-kilometer-sized fragments in the Baptistina family were lost in this fashion, with about 2% of those objects going on to strike the Earth, a pronounced increase in the number of large asteroids striking the Earth. Support for these conclusions come from the impact history of the Earth and Moon, both of which show evidence of twofold increase in the formation rate of large craters. The team then investigated the origins of the 180-kilometer diameter Chicxulub crater, which has been strongly linked to the extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Studies of sediment samples and a meteorite from this time period indicate the Chicxulub impactor had a carbonaceous chondrite composition, much like the well-known primitive meteorite Murchison. There should be fragments of the asteroid that hit the Yucatan Peninsula, but none have been reported. They claim all original material was vaporized. It appears there may be a conspiracy to suppress this information. The report was on ChicxulubMeteoriteCrater.com, published on the internet with no identification of the author on January 29, 2006. This website no longer exists. And I will read the quote in the next section. This is section 10 of this book. And we are ending at the top of page 63.